While the objective of my channel is to promote older or unknown gems of cinema, I do pay some degree of attention to new releases as well. And every so often the announcement of some new show or movie will catch my interest. And then it comes out. And it reminds me why I prefer the older stuff. So I've made this short list of new works I was glad to have missed this year. Now, this isn't merely an account of new titles that were bad. Otherwise, I'd be talking all day. No, to qualify for this video, the film or series in question had to have had first sparked my personal interest, only for the ensuing promotions and reviews to leave me thankful I didn't follow through on that interest. But Gene, you might ask, isn't it presumptuous to pass judgment on something that you haven't seen yourself? Isn't it pretentious to dismiss a creative work out of hand without the insight of personal experience? Sure, in most cases. But on occasion, when there are enough red flags flying, there's no problem skipping out on an event and spending your time on something better. It's like a root canal. When everyone who's had one tells you how miserable of an ordeal it is, you don't really need to undergo it to know you're not missing out. And with all that out of the way, here are 5 movies and shows that I'm glad I passed on in 2024. Now, I am cheating a little bit with this one, as I have always had no interest in the live-action Disney remakes. Except for Cinderella. That one was nice. No, Mufasa makes the list, because its premiere coincided with a movie I was genuinely interested in, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which I've discussed in another video. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was an absolute blast of a movie and I want to see more! More! I enjoyed it. And perhaps it's petty of me, but the thought that my ticket payment helped Sonic outrun a shameless Disney cash grab at the box office just warms my cold, undead heart. So for that reason, Mufasa is here to kick off this list. Like many people, I loved the original Ghostbusters movie. It's such a perfect blend of dry wit and creepy supernatural fun. And I think even the people who didn't see the 2016 remake, myself included, understand that it soured the franchise pretty well. However, Ghostbusters Afterlife went a long way in repairing the damage, and while the story may have played it too safely, I found it to be a fun sequel that respected its roots. So when Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was announced, I was cautiously optimistic to see how well it would build on the previous installment, until I listened to the reviewers. All of the criticisms I've heard for this movie, a bloated script, too many characters, lackluster performances from otherwise great talents, among others, were enough to convince me not to answer this particular call. My knowledge of the Ghostbusters saga is limited to the original film and Afterlife, and Ghostbusters 2 if I'm curious enough someday. And that is just the way I like it. I can still remember the thrill of seeing Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy when it first premiered in theaters. And those movies are the reason I delved into J.R.R. Tolkien's writings. From The Lord of the Rings, to The Hobbit, to The Silmarillion, and to The Children of Húrin. And while many people may disagree with some of the changes Jackson made to the story, and I have some qualms of my own to be sure, his movies are still widely hailed as masterful works of cinema. Amazon's Rings of Power does not have this reputation. More dedicated reviewers than myself have already described the degree to which the first season mangled Tolkien's characters, settings, and timeline, and analyses of the uneven pacing, inconsistent production values, lackluster acting, and all-around bad writing only further convinced me to give the show a wide berth, as it clearly couldn't stand on its own merits. Nevertheless, I kept eyes and ears open for news on the second season. The probability was small, but not zero, that Amazon's creative team may have decided to fix their mistakes and mend this broken story. None of the feedback I've heard suggests that this was the case, to put it politely. The next time I decide to revisit Middle-earth, I'll just open up Tolkien's books. The Borderlands games are among my favorite first-person shooters in recent years. Borderlands 2, in particular, was a minor addiction that led to a significant backlog in my personal gaming and anime queue. Luckily, Borderlands 3 finally came out, and that particular disappointment was the bucket of ice water I needed to shock me out of that habit. 7 years between titles, and that was the best story they could write. Though my interest had waned, news of a Borderlands movie had me curious, if not necessarily optimistic, about how the story might play out on screen. And then the cast was announced. And then the first trailer premiered. And then all the reviews confirmed that yes, it really was that bad. There are plenty of reasons to give this film a pass. Bad cinematography, wildly inaccurate casting, cheap sets and props, poor writing, boring story, and so on and so on. For my part, I'm just glad I didn't see my favorite character Krieg ruined on screen, even if he is reported to be criminally underdeveloped. Borderlands 4 might fix some of the franchise's damage when it comes out next year, but at this point, I am in no rush to find out. I've already mentioned my fondness for J.R.R. Tolkien's work, so I won't repeat it here. I will say that Warner Brothers had the perfect opportunity to show up Amazon with a prequel adaptation of their own. They had the movie rights, they had creative minds from the movie trilogy returning, and the idea of exploring the history of Rohan with an animated account of their legendary king, Helm Hammerhand, had people interested, myself included. And perhaps if the movie actually focused on Helm instead of an unnamed background character, people would still be interested. Now, to be fair, I have heard that the movie is reliably entertaining at times, and the characterizations aren't all bad. And I do like the art style and the recreation of Rohan's iconic locations. Unfortunately, that's all outweighed by reports of inconsistent animation quality, out-of-place references, a padded runtime, and the Oliphant in the room. The shift in focus to someone's fan-fiction character whose story just isn't that compelling. To reiterate a previous sentiment, I think I'll save my time and money and just read Tolkien's appendices for this one. And there we have it. 5 releases this year that I avoided despite my initial interest. And I think I'm better for it. Feel free to mention whatever travesties of entertainment you're relieved to have avoided, and I will see you all again in 2025. And I thank the reviewers out there who save us the trouble of watching the awful, and I thank you very much for watching my channel.